Thanks. Yeah.
That's what's up. Well, we hitting the mark. It's 3:30. Welcome to Building Bridges, Food and Conversation. There's healing at the table, y'all. My name is Zimbabwe Davies. I'm your moderator / host, creator of Building. And I would also like to welcome my co-host, Chef Sarah Germany.
Hey. How's everybody doing today?
Hey, good.
Peace.
See you folks again. My part of today is we're going to coexist with this conversation, and we're going to make two kinds of pasta. We're going to make a sweet potato gnocchi. Ra is going to be chefing with me on that part of it over there. We are also going to be making a Swiss chard ravioli. Matthew and crew will be helping me with that. And you all will continue to do your thing while I hang in the background and I'll pop in occasionally.
Thank you, sis. The audience, I want to thank the guests today. Before we get started, the topics we're going to touch on today is public safety, of course, food choices with Sarah Germany, economic wellness, and voting for November. And I'm going to go into the introductions with everyone. I want for you guys to introduce yourselves and give a brief summary of what you're doing and how it's impacting our communities during these times. And I'm going to start with Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I am a Oakland native. I'm a local entrepreneur. I'm the owner of Bijou Organics and Mod Apothecary. And I have taken this time predominantly to hold space for people and also to help everyone remember that in spite of everything that's going on, we do have lots of resources. We still have our traditions, our medicine making traditions, our mutual aid networks to help provide, things like food and, like the other brother was saying, all kinds of resources. So just reminding and kind of, mostly reminding and holding space for people and helping them to remember that we have a lot of things that we need in spite of everything that's going on. So that's been a blessing for me, for my family, for friends, for the rest of the community. And I hope that helps to keep people uplifted and also that this conversation and this series and everything that's going on with this also carries people forward in reminding them that they are enough, that they have enough, and that that everyone will be fine and will be uplifted throughout this whole process.
That's what's up, Alicia. Thank you. We're going to move on to Brother Ra.
What's up, people? Thank you for tuning in today. I'm super blessed to be working for a super dope organization in Oakland called Lotus Bloom. We have family resource centers and we do a lot of case management in the community directly. So being a part of them, we're able to have in-person play groups where we're seeing families that have kids between 0 and 5. So they have a real intimate setting to get all those fundamental skills of like social and emotional skills, gross motor, fine motor. We help the parents become better parents. And then our case management side, we're doing a lot of work getting them in touch to similar resources that Alicia was mentioning. So we got diapers and food and cash assistance that we're trying to network with folks. I also work at a store in Oakland called the Ravens Wing. So part of this time too is a lot of healing. So I've been with this store for about like 15 years and we do herbs, sage, crystals, candles, a little bit of everything. So this is another time that we can tap into some of those indigenous practices for our own healing and well-being. So I do that constantly, make my own medicines, make bracelets that have healing attributes to it too, and try to get my staff, my community also tapped into like the earth energies. That's medicine that we have all the time that mother just producing, similar to the food that we get out of the garden. That's all medicine that's right there and available to us. So just reminding folks that, this is our stuff. People package it up and, want to sell it back to us thinking that it's outside of our knowledge and understanding, but our people's invented this. This ain't nothing new for us. So we just tapping back into the roots.
I love that,
I do art. So like my art too is to inspire, to create, to talk about social justice, to talk about the inequalities that are there, but also just to awaken the consciousness and the spiritual development of all people. So a little bit of everything across the board.
That's what's up, man. I just seen some of your artworks. Sister Sarah G just showed me in her house,
Right
man.
on.
It's incredible, man. I'm about to get some pieces from you for sure.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you, Brother Ra. And we're gonna move on to Matthew. How you doing, Matthew?
Good. What's up, y'all? My name is Matthew. I work for an organization called Oakland Leaf. Got some chefs with me. This is
Chella.
and we have another young chef right here. What's your name?
Addie.
And that's Chella and Adi. They're gonna be cooking with us. We run after school program at a bunch of schools in East Oakland, and I run a program called Love Cultivating Schoolyards, and we do youth garden work. So we really work with our young folks to get them to reconnect to the land. So we grew some of the food that we have in this beautiful meal, and can't wait to eat with y'all.
Thank you, good brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have my soul sister, Maya Whitaker. Maya Whitaker is just joining us. She does some incredible work in Oakland. Maya, can you introduce yourself? Give us a brief description of what you do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maya Whitaker. I am the program director for the Bay Area Urban Debate League. So I teach policy debate to high school and middle school kids around the Bay Area. I'm also involved in some politics, and I love helping Oakland and anything that has to do with uplifting our community.
So
Thank you. Thank you. I'm seeing that my internet connection is a little unstable. So if there's a pause, please I'm not doing it on purpose. Sis, you got something?
Yeah, so I just want to pop in for a second and get us started, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So the folks who are cooking, you should have a pot of water boiling for your pasta. And you should have a smaller pot or a skillet, ideally, so that you can heat your sauce and finish your pasta in. Ra, I'm gonna start with you. You're gonna basically be rolling out a medallion. So this cutting board over here, you can see that?
yeah.
If you can watch me and talk, you all should be able to like do it as well. Matthew, when I'm done with Ra's gnocchi, I'm gonna move right over to your ravioli. And basically we're gonna be rolling pasta sheets and using this ice tray as our ravioli tray. All right,
Okay.
see y'all later. Like, in like a second over there.
Okay, so we're gonna dive into some questions. And you know, we're in some trying times in 2020. It's impacted so many different ways, and you know, I'm glad that we had this opportunity to have these impactful conversations to work on shifting the needle towards creating change. And I just I'm curious about what is the driving force that keeps you all motivated during these challenging times in 2020? And I'm gonna start with my soul sister, Maya Whitaker.
What is the driving thing that keeps us what? I'm sorry, Z. Can you say it again?
Sure. What is the driving force that keeps you motivated during these challenging times in 2020?
I would say the biggest thing that's keeping me motivated is I have a 7-year-old, so making sure that I'm just handling the quarantine in a correct way to demonstrate how it's going to impact him moving forward. Of course, being nervous with time to do some self-care and around me and not more so the bigger things.
My internet connection is super unstable. I missed a lot of what you said. I'm sorry, sis. I want to move on to Brother Ra. What is the driving force that keeps you motivated during this challenging time in 2020?
I would just say similar to sis over there, being a parent, raising a black boy in this world and being a black man walking in this world is motivation. But the work that I do, you know, I've always been involved in youth work ever since I was a youth myself, because there are, you know, it's cliche to say, but they being the future. But I really have a lot of hope, a lot of belief, and I'm inspired by them now, especially with the police killing of George Floyd and how they mobilized and got together. it's inspiring for me to do what little I can to make that process even smoother for them. But I do it because I love humanity. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not in a silo. We can't continue to be divisive. It's about like people. It's humanity. You know what I'm saying? There's one race, there's one people. That gives me inspired. Like, all this other bullshit with the skin and where you from and this and what you rep. At the bottom line, you know what I'm saying? We're all just soulful beings. And I just want to remember that soul and connect with that soul. So that gives me inspiration.
Thank you, brother. You said about we can't keep moving in silos, man. Like, this is one of the reasons why we're on this Zoom call, so we can work collectively together, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Brother Matthew, what you got for us?
Well, I really appreciate just the intention right here. You know, I just want to acknowledge that. And, you know, Brother Zimbabwe bringing all these forces together for this one collective, you know, progression, I think is a beautiful thing. And the challenges that we're confronted with, you know, social injustice, environmental catastrophe, let alone COVID and the pandemic and political oppression that continues in 2020. I think it's things like this, you know. I love the community and the folks who are, you know, conscious in the work and moving with intention. But in the work that we're doing, it's the same thing. It's like the new generation, right? We have all these children who need the guidance, they need that direction. And so I think in terms of the work that I do personally, growing food and engaging with the earth it's just remembering that we are all connected to the earth. We are beings of the earth, you know, and from the earth we come, and when we die, so we return. And so what I do to you, I do to myself, and what I do to the earth, I do to myself. And so I think it's that in Lakesh that's so powerful, you know. And so it's a joy to watch the plants grow. You plant a seed, you care for it, just like it's a joy to care for a life, you know, whether it be a child or an animal or, you know, all life. And so in 2020, I feel like there's this war on life, you know, and folks are just really coming to a head. And so we really got to remember that love is really what it's about. So appreciate this. Is really beautiful.
Man, I appreciate those words, and you know, you're doing this process with your children, which is incredible. So I definitely tip my hat off to you and salute to you, Matthew. Thank you. Alicia, what you got for us?
My motivation during these times is definitely change, right? Because change is one of the only constant things that we actually have to look forward to in this world, in this universe. And I think that we've known that there's been a lot of issues for a very long time in our society and beyond. And you know, I think that even before 2020 came, it was very obvious that 2020 would be this time to kind of clear up our vision, right? To offer us, to give us this opportunity to see what 2020 vision, what's all happening around us, and to give us an opportunity to be able to change those things, right? So that we can move forward into the future a lot more powerfully, a lot more focused, a lot more intentional, with intentions of healing, you know, our planet, ourselves, our community, everyone beyond us. And so I've been enjoying that process of just remembering, you know what I mean, all the things that I've seen in the past that needed to change. And now kind of like that veil has dropped, and a lot of other people are able to see a lot of those things as well, and are able to direct their energy and their attention and their expertise in a way that they haven't been in the past. You know, this time last year, people were doing a lot of very different things, and now they are focused on a lot more community attributes, on mutual aid networks, on how, you know what I mean, on how your food systems work and how you can shore it up in such a way that it'll benefit yourself, your family, your community, and beyond. And those are things that we've needed to do for a really long time in order to combat things like environmental racism, you know, food injustice, and redlining, and food deserts, and all these different things. And so change, you know what I mean? Really embracing change and really embodying the act of embracing change, and sharing with other people how they can also be a part of that. You know, so that, you know, so that no one's like moving or existing in fear or anything. It's just, you know, like, this is the way that the world works. This is the way our whole universe works, right? Change is absolute. You know what I mean? That is the only steady thing in the entire universe, and it's okay.
Woo. Thank you, Alicia. That was very powerful. The year of vision 2020. Thank you. Thank you again. Chef Sarah, do you want to get on? Do you have something for us right now?
What was the question?
So the question is, what is the driving force that keeps you motivated during this challenging time in 2020?
I think the primary thing is hope, right? I think one of the things that I am finding, and I've shared this with some of you individually, is the things that are stored in me that I'm unaware of from a conscious perspective, like how much ancestral wisdom is inside. And when we find ourselves challenged, the things that we are drawn to that don't necessarily line up with any of our traditional practices or habits, but that we somehow innately, so for example, just being able to pull you guys together, right? Knowing that in this time and space, what's most important is community. And that very village that it took to raise a child, that we actually need that more than ever right now to sustain the adults, so that we can continue to support our children and hold up for our elders. And I think that what I'm finding the most strength in these days are those voices that come to me in my head and my heart, that kind of hold me up when I'm feeling like I'm at the end of that rope.
Thank you, sis. I just want to add to you, even for me, you know, I got a niece that's 3 years old, and all she knows is love. When she sees me, she says, "Hi, uncle, uncle everything," right? She loves me to death, and I love her to death. And so when I wake up, or whenever I'm having a challenging time during this year, I think about her, and I think about for her to have a better future. And that's something that's constantly on my brain. You know, you guys spark light in my spirit. You know, my family, my friends, everybody that's been poured into me over the years allows me to continue to do this work. So even when it seems like things are grim and things are hopeless, I still have that hope that's inside of my spirit. And sort of what Sarah G said about the ancestors, they're in our spirits. You know, they live with us every day. They move with us every day. And it's up to us to continue to do the work and to inspire others. Yeah. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the second question. Diana, can you also put the next question in the chat box as well? That way, if I freeze, everyone can read the question and we can continue to move forward. The second.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, given the current heightened state of racial injustices, our nation's history, and your own life lived experiences, both personally and professionally, what are your recommendations on creating widespread public safety in all communities? And I'm going to start with Brother Ra.
Woo. That's a big one. That's a big one. There's so many layers to address when it comes to public safety for all communities. I want to start off by saying that I'm not an expert in public health or public safety or anything of that nature. But what I see that is missing is that community investment. We have trillions of dollars to bail out corporations and airlines and cruise ships during the pandemic, and then we get like a $1,200 check, you know what I'm saying, so that we can, you can't even pay, and we live in the Bay, that $1,200 check ain't paying for nothing. So we are taking all this money out of our community, all these dollars out of our community, and we're not investing into local economies. I think one thing that we need to start focusing on is reimagining how community is. And I think situations like the pandemic are actually allowing sort of that reimagination. You have topics like defund the police. I would prefer reallocating funds away from police to, again, mental health or more community investment. So those resources that we are doing, these nonprofit organizations that are actually helping out communities, to fund them more. We don't have a lot of access to equity in the bank. When it comes to loans and things of that nature, a lot of times it goes to folks outside of us. So we can get small businesses back on point in our communities. I mean, we have Black Wall Street in Tulsa. So we've proven that we can do fine on our own. We just need that access to capital that other communities have. But this question in particular is so unraveled. There's so much going on in terms of like public safety. And I think even before we even talk about safety, we gotta talk about the harm that's been done and the healing that needs to take place before we can even talk about the safety, because a lot of our communities, have harmed one another. So in order to build a sense of trust, a sense of like camaraderie, we need that healing to take place first. So maybe that's in terms of restorative justice, these town meetings like this, or just opportunities for folks to build, which we don't have a lot in our spaces, these safe spaces that people love to say around in the Bay. We don't have enough of those opportunities to actually get down and talk to the other and to talk about the healing and the harm I've been harmed by Black people. I've been harmed by all shapes of different people, but there's a lot of harm that has to be addressed first before we even start talking about safety.
So Rob, I want to dig a little deeper. Can we start the healing with you just said, you were harmed by our own people. I've been harmed by our own people. How do we even start that conversation to sense of healing amongst us?
I mean, I think what we're doing right here, it's all about like the storytelling. Our peoples come from like the oral tradition where we were able to learn from one another. Like I learned about other people's experiences by talking to them and hearing about their pain or empathizing with their pain or understanding like, yo, that struggle is also like my struggle, but toned in a different lens. So there's a power of story and the power of narrative. And one has to be open, of course, to like listen to the other side. But like, I think we can start just by just dialoguing and talking. I'll give a brief example of, this teacher who in this day and age probably would have been canceled. I was in a class. He was talking about a certain type of ink. This is graphic design. He was talking about some ink and he said, this ink is so Black, it shouldn't have left Africa. And I'm looking around, yeah, just like Alicia made, I made that face like, what? What does that mean? So I go up to him and I'm like, yo, can you tell me, where's this ink from? And he's like, you can go to Michael's, you can go to Blix. I'm like, no, where's it from? Is it manufactured in Africa? He said, no, why? I was like, well, why is it so Black it shouldn't have left Africa? I'm offended by that. And, he got uncomfortable. He took me outside and we were in the hallway talking and it ended up getting worse. He kept saying like, well, it's a well-known fact that Africa is considered the dark continent. And I was like, what? The sun shine on that continent more than anywhere else. What you talking about, dark continent? What you really mean is that Europeans came over and saw a land of dark-skinned people and called it the dark continent. But the sun shines on that place more than anywhere else. So then we actually just started talking. And we went into like some of his history and background. And long story short, at the end of it, me and him, we was rocking hard. He came up to me and was like, yo, I am an asshole. Excuse my language, people out there. He's like, I'm an asshole and I know it. But the fact that you were able to challenge me, I've been using this joke every year, not realizing that the impact on it. And the fact that we were able to have that working dialogue, I didn't go out to school and say, cancel Mr. So-and-so, he's a racist. No, we actually had an opportunity to talk and listen to one another. And at the end of it, we became tight and homies.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
That's what I value. Like we have to be able to have these difficult, challenging conversations.
Right, right. I love the part that you said we got to challenge each other and not get offended with emotion, but be more mindful of when we get
Mhm.
challenged with our minds. Thank you for that, brother Rod. That was powerful. Can everyone question in the chat box? Okay, I'm gonna move on to Alicia.
Yeah, let's see, so a viable recipe for public safety. I would definitely say that expanding our idea of what public safety actually is. Um, I do, I mean, I think there's a space for like all the different components of society and public safety that we have in place now. But I definitely think there is space for reallocating resources to other places too. Um, Primarily because I feel like when, like, you know, once the police get involved, that's like a tertiary level of public safety, right? There's been levels that have likely been missed before like the police become involved inside of a situation. And I think that when we consider how we can reallocate funds and resources, even attention, when it comes to public safety, you know, you look around at like some of our parks and everything, right? Like, are they up to par to be able to be, you know, good spaces for kids, for adults, for our elderly to be able to go get fresh air, be out in the elements, walk around, you know, mingle, get to meet other people, you know what I mean? Or is there something for the public? You know, it's a public space. We have a lot of other public spaces in and throughout our city, our county, state, and everything that if resources could be reallocate it to those spaces so that people don't have to be cooped up and be frustrated and, you know, and act out or reach crisis levels based on whatever other things are happening inside of their houses, you know, in their homes. But also looking at things like, I mean, I've known a number of people. I think I've lost 3 young men in my family to suicide. And so like mental health care, the access to it, um, you know, access, you know what I mean, to those things so that people, again, can be able to seek treatment and get support before things reach a crisis level, before they're in the street yelling and screaming or, you know what I mean, or being apprehended by the police or, you know, for goodness sakes, you know, being killed by them, you know. So there's all these stages before we get to these points in our society where, you know, where everyone wants to dump the money at kind of like this last ditch effort, you know, inside of the prisons and everything. Like I did a report when I was in college years ago where I think it was like $20,000 a year was spent on a kid in school. And it was something like $55,000 a year was spent on someone in prison. It was like, okay, so there's clearly stages before we get to this tertiary place where, you know what I mean, we're dumping a lot of money into, you know, these places where, you know, people have a lot of fear of, you know, maybe folks who have been touched by the system and everything. But again, there's ways that like our public safety and public health resources can be utilized before we get to those points.
Right.
So yeah, so just expanding the lens of what we even think that that public safety is,
Right.
and then also being really honest about repairing and like implementing repair mechanisms for all the things that have been done to get us to this point, right? So redlining of communities, and, you know, like neighborhoods like my own in East Oakland, right? Like these are very clear red line communities, and you can almost draw lines between, you know, the things that have happened inside of these communities. And when it comes to environmental racism, when it comes to the resources that have been allocated to education and poverty alleviation and all these different things, right? Like these communities are not being cared for the way that they should by their own
Right.
representatives. Even I spent over $5,000 a year on property taxes. And it's like, that's not a little bit of money for a neighborhood where, you know, you can barely get anyone to repave the streets and, you know, just all, you know, come and pick up the dumped trash and, you know, graffiti and all these different things. So it's not like we're not contributing to our communities, you know what I mean? Even just to pay to live there. You know what I mean? A lot of us are active in different volunteer networks and community conversations like this and just so many
Right.
different things. So it's not that we're not contributing. It's that, you know, we're not really getting back what it is that we're contributing, you know, and what we're trusting our leadership to do
Right.
with those resources as we give them to them. So I think that's really important, you know what I mean? Being very serious and being very full-throated about what it is that we need you know what I mean, for our own public safety, you know, and just
Right.
being expansive about what that idea is in general.
Thank you, Alicia. And we're gonna move on to my soul sister, Maya Whitaker. If you need me to repeat the question, I definitely will.
I've been reading it over and over in the chat, and it just seems like a little bit more complex than I could give one answer to, is what I was sitting here reflecting on. Even listening to everybody's answers, it's not even one piece when I think of my community of Oakland or even East Oakland of what they need. I would say quarantine has really exposed mental health being a severe piece, and something I'm worried about just of what we're about to see, I guess, would be when it comes to public safety, a big contributor that I think is poverty and not having resources. And I'm very concerned about what that's about to look like for the holidays, with employment steady dropping and people's way of income steady like disappearing, especially those that were already living check to check. So I think an already stressed situation is about to get more stressed, which that would be my biggest public health concern of what does that look like on these families, and what is that going to drive people to do, if anything, and just how do we create a safety net to better catch those people that, you know, are about to be exposed to something we're not even ready for. Because I mean, as we talk about it now, I mean, when we first went on quarantine in March, we thought it would be over by the summer. We're now going into October. So I'm just really concerned about us going into 2021, and especially a community like East Oakland that was already deprived of resources. What is it going to look like when the money is really, really low, or going to hit a recession? Or I know young people like myself, I wasn't really cognitive of the 2008 crash, but this one I am. And it's like, so how do we prepare? Were we even prepared between the last 12 years? Those are things that I'm thinking about, like financially, how can I just get ready for what's about to happen next? So that would be my answer with public health.
Thank you, Maya. Brother Matthew.
Yeah, thanks y'all. Some beautiful minds right there. It's kind of hard to follow. It's a really tough question, and you know, as everyone was talking, it made me think of, you know, it's something else, and it is tough right now. I feel like there's so much pressure, and we feel it in many different assets of life, you know, and I think the biggest thing that I really loved about what Brother Ra's story kind of was shedding light to was, the more we know each other, the more we can understand or like comprehend each other, and the more we can relate. And so I think that we really need to like get to know each other. And the challenge with COVID, and the challenge with computer life and social media and all this, is that we are connected without really connecting. And so when I feel like this is kind of like led us to be so fractionalized, and, you know, again, COVID has just really heightened the systemic oppression of our country, and how certain individuals or certain communities are, you know, thriving in COVID, and while others are left, you know, to fend for themselves. And so I really love the power of the story and the word, but I think, like, how can we like commune, and how can we gather? How can we relate again? That's why I love what Chef Sarah's doing with the food. You know, food is always something that I thought brings folks together. And I think this is a beautiful thing. And again, I think it comes to the work that I do, is reconnecting to the earth. And so mental health is a huge issue. You know, I know a lot of people are struggling with anxiety and depression and stress and other mental health issues that are real serious right now. And I think that we need access to green spaces. You know, we're so blessed in Oakland. We have the hills. There's East Bay Regional Parks, but it's not accessible. Or, you know, it's one of those things. And again, the beautiful thing at Castlemont High School, there's a 1-acre farm in the middle of East Oakland. And I think we need to open that up to get more community involved, get young folks out there working with the land, touching the plants, seeing the flowers, you know, smelling the herbs.
T. Sarah G going on.
What it is.
We need to make that happen, man. Like, let's push that forward so we that happen.
Let's do it. I love it, y'all. Chef Sarah's on it. She's a revolutionary. Love it.
Oh yeah, I love my big sis. Sarah G, you got something?
I'm just gonna flip that question, right? Because I know each of you are amazingly dynamic and attached to some stuff, and some of you a whole bunch of stuff. What if you could offer our friends, our neighbors, our community one thing that you would recommend that folks just do in terms of their own mental health that you have found? Like, let's start putting some tools into that tool belt or that toolkit. So if each person could share, like for me, for example, one of the things that I love is finding Matthew in the garden in the early morning in the midst of like beet leaves and lettuce and okra, and just being amazed at what we can grow right here in East Oakland. I mean, we got bananas growing in East Oakland. And so just as a chef, being that close, literally being 9 minutes away from an acre of food every single day, and being able to go out there and harvest something and feed my family something that I know was planted with love. Like my kid was eating chard yesterday, and going, I don't even like chard. Why is this chard so good? And I was like, because that's all of Matthew's heart in it right there. But I do think that let's pay it forward. So that's my God.
Okay, Brother Ra.
I mean, with mental health, for me, it's about like what brings you joy. I think I'm fortunate to be blessed. Creative spirit and the creative muse always comes through me. So that might look like visual art, painting, making music, doing crystal wrap jewelry, making my own hand sanitizer, making my own shea butter elixirs, making some healing teas and blends in the kitchen, spending time outside. Brother Matthew was saying, that's life right there. There's data and science that's saying that if we expose ourselves to nature, or even putting your feet in the dirt, there's a chemical process that happens that actually releases some toxins and some, I forgot if it's positive ions or negative ions, but something. It goes out of our body into the earth. So tapping into nature, and again, if you don't have that access, there might be a patch of grass somewhere that you can get up to. Also just being around people that you love. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a hard time. I mean, we don't always have that ability to social distance or have opportunities like Zoom, but love the ones you with. Like, that for me is like healing. Like, again, earlier we talking about silos. The pandemic strengthened those silos, so we're getting the same information from the same people, like preaching to the choir, and we're not really expanding ourselves outside of those bubbles. But yeah, I would just recommend people find your joy. If that's being in the kitchen, if that's dancing like nobody is watching, whatever it is that you find joy, that's going to help with the mental health and help you get through this difficult time that we hear.
Ooh. Thank you, Brother Ra. Maya Whitaker, what you got for us?
I think I'm going to say the same thing. What I've been doing is taking a big break from social media, and as far as what I'm consuming and what is actually reality. I think that I'm in a unique case as a millennial that social media kind of grew up with us as opposed to being exposed to it at a young age, and it's just with you. So going back to times where I know you need to put this phone down and just focus on reading a book, being present with your son, go and cook dinner, listening to podcasts, I've definitely found entertaining, because it's just like reading a book. You can't really go back and forth with these people's ideas. You have to really sit there and consume somebody else's thoughts and really think and ponder on it. So maybe I might not agree, but since I'm taking away the ability to have an immediate response, then it really makes you sit with other people's rhetoric and language and cultures. So I've been really doing my best to try all kinds of podcasts and get news from all type of sources of things that I want to learn about. And so I strongly encourage people to do that, of lean into what you think is the best, way to get your stress out and things that you like to do. I also started exercising. So going to walk the marina 2-3 times a week, make sure you getting outside as much as you can. And again, just being present, like put the phone down, look at the water, enjoy your time. And just really just knowing, you know, you're on borrowed time is all I can say is how it feels. So definitely be appreciative and protect yourself in that.
I definitely agree with the working out.
Since the gym's been closed, I've been doing a bunch of calisthenics, but I just recently got some battle ropes, you know. So I'm gonna start working out more outside, doing to run, and that definitely works. And then writing. Writing has always been an outlet for me. You know, when I was 16, I used to feel misunderstood about life until I put that pen on that paper. And, you know, that went from me writing down ideas for fashion shows and them being on display, me writing treatment commentaries and then them being on screen. And even this project, working in conjunction with Sarah Germany, writing has been an outlet, and it's been helpful for me to not only share my own thoughts, but to share it with the universe and share it with the people and impact the people in the most, you know, we all need that love. We all need different perspectives. We all need that light in our spirit. And so writing has definitely been a tool that's helped me. Alicia?
I would, man, because there's been so many good recommendations already given, and I've tapped into all those, like, you know, in a lot of different ways. I would say for maybe someone who's like never really tapped into grounding techniques, like Brother Ra was talking about, and like Maya was talking about, in regards to just being out in nature, connecting, you know, with like your feet on the dirt or on the grass. And, you know, we happen to be really blessed because we are in the Bay Area, in Oakland, right? So we have waterfront, we have the hillsides, we have redwood forest, we have, you know, we have a lot of resources right here with us that are natural resources, you know. So, so I'm able to go around and just, you know, gather herbs and be able to make things with those. That's very therapeutic for me. Just going out to the waterfront really early in the morning, kind of like before the world wakes up, and just kind of meditating on the wave patterns, and you know what I mean, just giving myself like 5-10 minutes just doing that. It really is that's a huge release for me. Breath work, you know, and just, I would say for people, you know, like if they've never really tapped into like grounding techniques, really use this time to get familiar with a lot of different things and try different things and see what really resonates with you and what really seems to transform your energy from wherever it is when you start to where it is that you want to be, right? Because we have the time now. So, so like, you know, so use it to your benefit. I would say that I'm really big on mutual aid networks, and I say that because, you know, having like groups of friends that like you can talk to, like sometimes I've been able to just tap in with like girlfriends and just do a Zoom, and we just like purge like all the stuff that's been going on, and like we just feel better. You know what I mean? Like, so so having like networks of people that you can be around for different things. I'm also a medicine carrier, so being in community with other people who care about medicine making and are really excited about it and may find different ways and techniques of doing things, or, you know what I mean, being in community with them so that I can still share in that excitement and be able to, you know, continue to learn and build my skills and share, you know, fascinating things that I've been able to learn, you know, making the teas, making tinctures, making pain salves, making, you know, all these different things. Like, it's a very meditative thing for me. Personally, I put a lot of energy into everything that is that I do. And, you know, and that includes the medicine making. So, so those are definitely things that I've been able to access for my own wellness. You know, they may work for other people, but I would definitely just say, like, for people to be expansive and be able to, you know, to check out different techniques, you know, because even just lighting a candle, you know what I mean, and kind of like allowing like a little glow in an area of the room, you know, like where my altar is or whatever, that changes my whole mood, like, you know, just right there. Or like an incense, or, you know, a little bit of frankincense or whatever, you know what I mean, changing the aroma, changing the color, you know what I mean, even like putting a different curtain up, so the color in the room, you know, just changes. But, you know, being open and being expansive to, you know, to changing your environment, to going out into different places in your outer environment, and and tapping into things. Go hug a tree if you've never had, if you've never done it before. I know y'all got time, and you know what I mean. It's like you might be surprised. You might actually make you feel better. You know what I mean? Just go lay down on a patch of fluffy grass and just lay there for 5-10 minutes and just see if it does anything for you. And typically it will. It's just that we've been busy for so long that if you were like, I don't got time to do anything, it's like, well, now you do. Go tap in and see what's working for you.
That's what's up, Alicia. I love the expansive part. Candles. I'm a candle guy. The aroma, like, when I'm cleaning up, listening to my jazz or whatever music I'm listening to, like that smell, it.
Peace in your house, and so in my house too. So I love that.
Yeah, that's my jam.
But we're gonna move right along.
To Matthew.
Yeah, I've had it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of fun to be home and have all this time at home, but it's also been really, really hard. We have a lot of folks at the home, got a lot of children at home who have a lot of needs. It's a beautiful thing, and I've been really struggling with like frustration and anger, to be real, and not wanting to take that out on my children. Because it's like there's just not much time or much space to get that solitude or to be able to like reset. And so what I've been blessed that my wife has been holding it down so I could go work in the garden, work on the farm. And that's been one of the things that's really kept me sane. So getting to go out early in the morning, getting up 4:30 in the morning, getting out while it's still dark, watching the sunrise, putting in hard work and being home, to hang out in the afternoon. It's been working for me, but it's also been really hard for her, and I've seen that. So it's this constant kind of like dance and ebb and flow, just kind of like the universe is, the high tide and the low tide, and the moon growing and the moon coming down, and the sun rising and the sun setting. And so having that time in the morning for me, waking up early has been really good. I do some stretching, I kind of just like get limber, and that makes me feel good. And even if that's all I can do, and then we back in it, and we got a lot of needs, then that's good. But working out, staying active, being creative, those are things that make me feel like make me feel really good. Don't always get the time to do it, and so like I don't want to feel bad about not doing it either. So again, it's like, kind of just being grateful for the moment and the time that I have, and then also recognizing there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of other things that we're dealing with. So I love to hear what other folks are doing. It's really helpful, and it's helpful to know that we're not alone in our challenges too with this.
Thank you, Matthew. I mean, that's real talk. We're not alone. Chef Sarah Germany helps me get through a lot when I'm in my troubling times, on top of the practices that I already practice. And that would be a good segue into you, sis. What are some of the things you do?
I cook. I cook. We got like tomato sauce happening. We got pizza sauce happening. We got jam happening. We got apple butter happening. We got tea. We got herbs drying. I mean, the thing is, and I think you have to find out what your heart song is, right? And I think the thing that helps each of us heal is when you're able to play your heart song, right? Whatever that individual heart song is. And so for me, it's food, and all of it's like amazing things, finding new ways to work with things. I think particularly, we were challenged recently with the heat and the fires, and sort of having to be locked in, which makes, all the things that are amazing about being in California and being able to go out a little maddening. So just finding space in that, like finding things to keep me grounded. So y'all are eating, right? Next week we'll be having some barbecue, because it took me 68 hours to make that last barbecue sauce. Taking those tomatoes and peppers that Matthew's growing and roasting them and doing things. But yeah, I think just the baseline is staying true to your heart song, and making sure that you spend some time each day playing it.
Woo. Thank you, sis. Staying true to your heart song. I'm using that one. I'm stealing that one, sis. Okay, so we're gonna we're gonna move into the next question. Now we all know November is an important month for all of us, right? This month is gonna determine where we go as a society or where we don't go. So the next question I want to ask is, how can voting in November shift the change we want to see? And I want to start with my soul sister.
You were starting with me?
Yes.
Just making sure. How important is voting in November? Is the question, right? It's super important
Yes.
that people get out. Say it again then.
No, I was gonna say how can voting in November shift the change we want to see?
So I think that when people are like, social media has really brought a lot of topics that have been in the community as being discussed in politics for a long time. I think if we really want to see changes, you should think that yes, this is a presidential election year, but more so, it's also a lot of elections in your local races that are happening this year. I know for Oakland, we have some city council races that are coming up and things like that. So if policing is one of them issues that you want to see a change in the narrative, then this is the time that you need to get your vote together and be doing the research on opponents. I think another thing people should learn how to do is think for yourself. You shouldn't be asking people on Facebook who they're voting for and have that dialogue on Facebook. You should do the research because only you know the values that are important to you. Like, you should never trust Facebook because there's no reliable information on there. That's equivalent to getting information from somebody screaming on a corner. So be more considerate and think strategic about. In Oakland, you guys have ranked choice voting, so you don't even have to vote for one person. You can literally pick everybody that you feel is in line to get in the work done for what you want to see happen in your community. Also getting ready for, in 2 years, we also have a mayoral race. So who do you want that council to look like as they induct the next mayor of Oakland? And what do you guys want the next vision of Oakland to look like? Like, did you like the last management we had? Did you not like it? Like, how do you want to see things different? So I think people really doing the work of what do I want to see and what's important to me and my family and things that they want to see in their community is going to be so critical for them to understand and not just go with the gang mentality of, well, my cousin said we should vote for this person. Like, don't do that. Be strategic because you can't change it once you got whoever in management. That's how this country goes.
Okay, thank you, Maya. Thank you. And I had a follow-up question, but first, Chef Sarah Germany wants to go.
So Maya, when I first met you, you were running for city council. So as a young person, like what made you decide that it wasn't right? Let me get out here and make my own path.
I knew your voice and I wasn't tripping. I'm like, I know Sarah from somewhere. That voice is way too familiar. Excuse me, as I was like sitting here, like, where do I know this lady? What made me run for office was basically seeing that East Oakland just wasn't to the par or the standard that I feel like it should be. And more so people from the community like myself who grew up there, because I grew up in the East my area, it wasn't a lot of opportunities for us. And even the ones who are now working professionals like myself, I went to SF State, got my degree. I work for a nonprofit that works directly with the kids of Oakland, San Francisco, Richmond. I can't afford to stay here. That's ridiculous. Even doing everything right, as we say, for me not to be able to provide and build a new generation for my son and instead be paying $2,500 for a house in an area where I'm still dealing with the violence of East Oakland is insane to me. And I feel like it's a setup for us to not think about. I started thinking about what am I really showing my son as to what's to look forward to with me working these 3-4 jobs at a time, that this is normal. And the more I'm getting older, I just feel like that's not normal. And we shouldn't conduce ourselves to thinking that we got to work to be able to stay in our home. That's crazy to me. And so that was one thing that made me change. And also just seeing how the way policing is going in my neighborhood, I feel like that OPD doesn't do a good job of doing community outreach to people that look like myself. And I think that instead they paint a broad brush as to, oh, well, they don't like us and it's always going to be this hostility. And it's kind of been hard for me as somebody that likes to stand in the middle and try to be that in between and try to be that voice in between to really still remain in between when it's like, there is no in between to you're killing us. There's no middle ground to that. So how do we make sure that we set up the rules to protect us so that I don't have to keep saying, stop killing me? There's a rule, there's a policy, and when you break that policy, you go to jail, just like me. You know, it's clear. So that's been my biggest fight is what I have a black son. What do I want him to inherit? And I'm really afraid of that. And I'm not afraid to say that. I don't think we should keep saying that in hushed tones, you know, like, oh, don't say that. You don't want that to be true. Like, but I think we should say that. I think we should say, I'm 29 and I have a 7-year-old and I'm really scared about his first interaction with OPD. Really scared. And y'all know who I am, but will they? So, yeah.
Woo. Powerful. That was a good point. We can't be on hush hush status talking about this, because the more we're on hush hush status, the more lives that get lost. You know, the more we lose out as a people, and we don't. And so, like I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you, Maya. And Chef, that was the question I was gonna ask, but thank you for chiming in and asking that. So I'm gonna move on to Brother Ra.
I would have to agree. It's about that civic engagement. A lot of times we focus on the president, Biden and Trump, and we forget that there's other parts that we voting for. So just like Maya was saying, like, you know, there's council member, there's your school board. These are offices that have direct impact on our communities. But some of that apathy comes when we look at the executive branch and we just see like, oh, we got this old white guy and then we got a racist old white guy to choose from. I'm not gonna jump into this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not me. Obama era is over. You know what I'm saying? Wakanda for life. But like, we forget, you know what I'm saying? It's the district, all these little offices, and that's what's been happening. Like, so just in the last couple of weeks, we're focusing on, you know what I'm saying, these two old white guys. And meanwhile, Mitch McConnell is appointing like 8 federal judges who have something like a lifetime, serve. So it don't even matter who's at the top. Like, these are the cats who just get the bills and sign, like, check, put their big name on it with a Sharpie. But it's the people who are making the laws that we need to vote out of there, that we have to, like, put our agenda, make sure that our agenda and our policies are being heard. It's not these dudes at the top. It's not the dudes at the top. So the vote matters because we vote for people who are going to have our agenda in mind. Those small local offices are big.
So
those
I want to
judges,
add,
appointees, all that, like, that's big.
I wanted to chime in and ask you, Rod, like, how do we get people motivated to focus on, local government, city council? How do we get young people to focus on just not the 2 white guys who are running for president, one of the guys who's already the president? How do we get people to get involved with local government in terms of getting them involved?
I really don't have an answer for that, but what I've seen is that folks are stepping up. Like, the young folks are stepping up. Either it's through an Instagram post, it's through a TikTok, it's whatever app, saying is cool. I want to give a shout out. I'm actually going to put it in the chat box right now, this YouTube video. But there's a cat that I seen on my Instagram feed. His name is Yellow Pain. He has a video, I think it says, like, my vote doesn't matter. But brother breaks it down, this whole thing about, the executive branch, the judicial branch, he lays it down in a language and a style that, as someone who's 43 years old, I sort of feel like I'm a little, they call me sir, you know what I'm saying, when I start talking to the youth nowadays, you know what I'm saying? I got the grades, so I don't have that same kind of rapport that I used to when I was a little bit younger to get in their heads. But these are cats who are actually standing up and doing it in a style and a format that is digestible. I mean, I was blown away by this dude's rhymes, you know what I'm saying? And I have faith again in MCs that people can actually take this time and the opportunity to address some of these things. So I'm not sure, because again, I'm not a big social media influencer. I can't, do a little TikTok. But there's ways that we can use social. I mean, the TikTok messed up Trump's big, speech by having that little prank, saying they bought all them tickets. So they're already doing it. I just don't know how to like tell them what to do next with it, but they're already doing it. That's why I can't say because they're doing it. I have faith in these folks, the young folks right now, that they ain't gonna let this stuff slide. They ain't gonna let this stuff slide. So I'm not all about the cancel culture and like, all this other stuff, but the other stuff that they're doing, I think they're gonna do it because they feel the effects and the importance of what's at stake right now. When I was a young person, I wasn't thinking about it because I wasn't affected directly. But I think anybody in this time is affected somehow directly by the policies that are coming from this administration and want to make change. And with the Black Lives Matter movement spearheaded by young folks, they feel now that their voice does matter, that there is change. You got Black Lives Matter painted in Washington, D.C. So people can step up and make that change and know that their voice is more than just one little vote for the white man at the top.
Facts, man. I love that thank you again. People are rising to the occasion, man. That's pivotal in these times. So yeah, I'm gonna move on to Alicia.
Politics. It's kind of interesting because it's September, right? So we got like a little bit of time before like a pretty big presidential election. And one thing that I realized a while ago was regarding my own, I guess, political maturity and how much it was needed. And then also how much that would kind of change my perspective on a lot of different things. Because I kind of grew up during the time I remember watching, I want to say it was maybe the first, like the elder George Bush and like Michael Dukakis debates with like my mom and grandma. And, I could tell that like things were really tense. I was a kid, so I didn't really know. I was like, okay, which side are we on, right? Because, you could tell it's a debate, it's back and forth. There was a lot of energy in the room. And my mom was like, we're Black, we're Democrats, like, I was like, okay. And so, that was kind of like my that was my perspective going, through school and everything until I became an adult. And I was like, okay, there's a lot more going on here. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot more engagement that I need to, I need to understand. And I took a political science class and I learned a little bit more about kind of like how the nation was founded and how all these different things and the Electoral College and all that kind of stuff works. And like there's a lot of interworkings of it. And if we are not teaching our kids the interworkings of the political sphere, then they're not learning it. You know what I mean? Like they probably are, like Maya was saying, just learning off of social media, which, can be effective in some ways, depending on the messaging, but we also don't know those people's, their perspective politically. So one thing that I always try to offer folks is to come up with like 3 of the most consequential things in your life. Like what is affecting your life more than anything? And, and develop your basic political agenda surrounding those things. So if it's like your local education system that's inequitable, if it's like poverty alleviation, if it's something environmental, if it's, you know what I mean? If it's like police brutality, whatever it is, like develop your personal political agenda around that and then take that to your local political candidates and your local leaders and express yourself as a constituent as to like what is most important to you and what needs to change in order for you to live the American life that you deserve to live. Again, you're a taxpayer, you're a contributing member, your ancestors built the country, like you should absolutely, have an ask, your agenda should be respected. But I think for people to be able to get there, they have to know what the most consequential things in their life are, and they have to be able to express that to other people. And then also to know that politics and your vote in general is an exchange, right? Like, so people shouldn't show up every 4 years and be like, oh, hey, you guys over in that community again, you know what I mean? Like, can I count on your vote? Like, engagement should be happening, I think, kind of ongoing, not just during election seasons, and like Maya was saying, in 2 years, we got a mayoral election coming up, right? And so we need to be thinking about that already right now, you know what I mean? Not like a couple months before, the election happens. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, who are the potential candidates, right? Who's potentially going to be in the sphere, in the arena? How can we be affecting them or influencing them? And, you know what I mean? Coming to them with our agenda now versus, you know what I mean, a lot later on in the in the process. And so that requires like some political maturity. You know, definitely, you know, I would say myself, but, you know, I think on the part of the community as well, and letting them know how they can be more strategic about, you know, about their politics, you know what I mean? So that they can be able to apply pressure in the right places at the right time to be able to get the things done that they need to have done in their communities.
Right. Thank you, Alicia. I love what you said about politicians always to the communities every 4 years. You know, I've always said they need to be there way before to communicate with everyone who lives in these communities that are impacted by violence, police brutality. And when they show up and do these photo ops, you know, before they get voted in, they act like we don't know, you know. And I think
We got to do a better job of challenging them when they come in and just say, hey, where were you at 3 years ago?
2 years ago, we need to continue to challenge them, and that should be a standard that we should hold, is that when you want to be voted, when you want to get our
Here all the time. You can't just show up during voting time. So thank you for that, Alicia.
Yep.
We're going to move on to Matthew.
Oh, I think your sound cut out. But Brother Matthew, you're up next.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a really tough one. I think whatever. Can you guys hear me now?
yes.
There we go. All right, sorry about that. I think that it's so hard. I think what everyone said is totally spot on. I think it's all about local and smaller elections. But that being said, like, I don't really know much about our local politics at all. And so I have to say I'm ignorant, you know, and I need to inform myself more. I think it's so easy. I get so disenfranchised by the system when I see the hypocrisy of these career politicians, you know, and you see what's going on right now in the Senate. And it's so frustrating because, you know, 4 years ago when Obama was going to get a nominee, they blocking it, and now they're trying to rush it through. And it's all just a lot of back scratching and a lot of hypocrisy. And so I really struggle with not getting totally disenfranchised by the system. And then also, you know, when I was in high school, I had, is when the Bush-Gore election kind of went down, and I just kind of saw how rigged the whole system was. You know, Fox News called it, everyone else fell in line, nobody really questioned it, Gore just fell down, rolled over, and that was it, and we have Bush for 8 years again, you know, and I feel like, what's to stop the system from doing the same thing to Trump this time around? But again, I think that our power lies in what we do here in Oakland, in California, Alameda County, as a kind of bastion of resistance. And you see, Trump didn't really want to come out to California, even though it was burning for like 2.5 weeks. And they know that it's different out here. I feel like in California, we have resources and power in those resources. And if we can get our elected officials here in California to advocate for us and our ideals and our ideologies, that's what it's about. But I get really inspired when I see the new Congress people like AOC and Rashida Tlaib and all these, you know, young folks coming in and just kind of turning it over. And that's really the change I think we need. And if we can engage our young folks and inspire them, you know, it makes me think about when I was a senior in high school, second semester, which I guess traditionally is supposed to kind of be checked out of high school by then. I had a civics teacher who was like the best teacher I had in all 12 years, and who taught us all about the American political system. And again, we don't know how this system functions. We think that you get to vote for the president, and then that's what it is, and you get a congressperson, but it's so much more, like Alicia was saying, it's so complex. So I think we need to really comprehend this system and teach our young folks how to navigate it and manipulate it for the agendas that we are trying to, you know, advocate for. We know that the young Republicans are really organized and they're putting a lot of money into those communities. And I think that's the challenge is how do we get our young folks, how do we get them those same resources? And how do we, motivate communities in that way? So that's where I see conversations like this being really powerful. And that's the work for sure.
Ooh, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matthew. Chef Sarah, take us home.
So I'm gonna probably not do much but cause more questions. I mean, most of us work with kids, and the ones of us who don't work with kids have them in our lives in other ways, whether we're parenting or being an auntie or a big sister or uncle. And so one of the questions in terms of voting, because I know there's a lot of sort of an apathetic notion about what it does and the importance of it, right? Whether we're looking at it from a local level or we're looking at it all the way up to like the upper administration. What do we do kind of as elders, because we getting up there, y'all, in our community when we're working with young people, not necessarily just talking about the importance of voting, but the importance of voting as one part of their voice, right? Because I think one of the things that happens when you're a part of a disenfranchised community is that you forget that you have a voice and that voice has tentacles. And that if we are able to link those tentacles, what we create is a force. What can we offer in these upcoming 38, 40 days in our individual spaces to help people understand that their voice is critical in terms of moving anything forward, and that voting and elections, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year, whether it's a local election, a school board election, whether it's our Senate or our House of Representatives, that identifying and owning your voice is critical to survival.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Maya Whitaker.
So when I'm talking to young people that I work with or come in contact with about just trying to get them excited about politics, I first start with just listening to what are their issues about what they know and meeting them kind of where they're at. So of course, just asking them how are they feeling. And yes, most of the time you do get like they feel powerless or they don't see the point of it. And I think it's not more so convincing them, but making them feel re-empowered about the importance of somebody had to fight for that vote and fight for you to even have a chance. And in this democracy where you live, you have to vote to participate. There's no other way around it. So if you don't vote, then you can't be mad at the outcome that comes with it. It's very simple. Either you like the management we got now and you want to get him out, it's time to vote him out, or you don't, and we keep going on. I mean, I just try to be honest with them about, like in debate, you're not going to win every round. We knew that coming into this. Somebody had to lose the election. But what did you do in your part to try to make sure your voice was counted into what you wanted to see done, into what you felt was important? That's why I said, going back to, everybody doesn't agree about the same things as being important: the economy, the pandemic, schools. Everybody has their different strengths. So what are you doing to research to make sure that your voice gets heard, so your vote gets counted toward what you want to see done? And I don't think that it's cool for people to just sit on Facebook and complain and nag about the situation when you literally live in a country that has a government that wants to engage you so you can vote and get what you want to see done. And again, it's not a magic wand. Nobody told you that. You still got to do work. When has this country ever voted and things have went easily? They freed the slaves and we was never really free. So, I mean, how do you think just because it's 2020 things have changed? You still got America. So I just think it's about being honest with people that the work will never be done, but what are you doing to contribute to your part and what you can do to help change the world, to not create burnout, to make sure that you're protecting your community the best way you can, and that you're also bringing young people along the way for the journey. And again, being honest with them. It's going to be hard. It's going to be research. Sometimes we're going to lose, but we always going to just be ready for it because that's what it takes.
Ooh. Thank you. Thank you, Maya. Moving on to Alicia.
And what was the question exactly again?
Sis, you got to rephrase the question.
What was the question?
Just sort of in the wake of everything feeling like it's falling apart, how do we help young people understand that their voice is critical?
Ah, yes, yes. I think a lot like Maya said, is just engaging with them and finding out what's most important to them. You know, maybe what's bothering them, what's making them feel more empowered. But also, I guess, like similar to what I would ask adults, which is like, what's most consequential to your life right now? Like, what's affecting you more than anything right now? And likely what's affecting your family the most too. So like, you know, for some people, you know, that might be immigration, or, you know, that might be like some other thing. Like different people have different things that are like super consequential to them and their communities. And, you know, and kind of maybe like, I'm thinking about like, you know, something that's like on kids level to where, you know, they could express their own asks, right? Like, you know, something that's kind of like creative or imaginative, like with kids, so that, you know, in your perfect world, you know what I mean? What would you do about these situations, and like really elicit from them what those solutions might look like. And kids are like super creative. So sometimes you'd be really surprised at the kind of solutions that they come up with. You know what I mean? And then, you know, we as like, you know, older people, you know, might be able to actually go out and kind of stump on their behalf and lobby politicians on their behalf, right? Like the future said this, you know what I mean? These are the things that like, you know, that the future wants. But I listened to a politician, she was from another country, but she talked about like some of these kinds of things that like her family would do around the dinner table in regards to like eliciting questions from the kids about kind of like, you know, the democracy within their own home, like, you know, who's going to do these chores and at what, you know, on what day, and like, you know, and all these kinds of things. And so, so those might be good ways of engaging with kids, you know what I mean? So that they actually feel like they can be part of the change and part of the solution. But definitely understanding what the most consequential topics are for you. So because one thing that I notice about politics is like they will bring to you their agenda, which is why I always say that like politics is an exchange. It's not a gift, right? You don't just give your vote away and wait until, you know, 2-4 years when these people come around again. You know what I mean? With like all of their glitz and glamour, like, hey, can I get your vote again? Right? It's an exchange. You know, you give them your vote, and then they're supposed to give you something back in exchange, not just as a figurehead, you know what I mean, or as your representative. If they're going to represent you, they need to be doing what you as a constituent actually need. And if not, then you need to be able to hold them accountable. And so that's probably something that we're going to have to work on as a community ourselves. You know, someone mentioned like, you know, young Republicans and how well funded they are and how well organized they are and things like that, you know, and that's something that, you know, is like, you know, maybe Democrats and independents or however people identify, you know, like young people in those groups need to be well funded and organized as well, so that they can be able to hold politicians accountable. I think that's something that's kind of missing right now, is like people do shady stuff or they do something that's not to the benefit of their constituents who, you know, they say that they support and they represent, and like those constituents don't have any resources to be able to hold them accountable. So, you know, so I think that's like, you know, something else to work on. But I think there's creative ways to like engage with kids and make them feel empowered, you know what I mean? And it's probably going to start like on home stuff with maybe like chores or, you know, housework or something like that, like kind of having your own little democratic republic within the house so that they can exercise those things and they can feel empowered with voicing themselves, and they can understand that, hey, this benefits me and this doesn't benefit me. And they can understand, they can have exercises on like kind of how they can play around with those things and make changes, you know?
So here's the deal though. The kids who are eligible to vote this year for the first time, like the folks who turned 18, right? These kids were born in the wake of 9/11, right? With the whole notion of a terrorist attack and these sort of things. They've lived through the worst climate changes that we've seen in the history of our times. And now most of them didn't get a graduation. They didn't get to go to college in any of those traditional ways. And you know, what I hear a lot of, particularly from the East Oakland kids, is like, what the fuck? Like, why does anything matter? Right? how do you, particularly with Black and brown kids, in the wake of continuing to see themselves shot and suffocated, and then all of the things that are happening in the world, help them understand that what isn't okay is apathy.
Anybody can take it, or
Yep.
want me to start? I was gonna say, I think that one thing that what's always struck to me when I felt like, what's the point of this, and what's worked, what I've seen when talking to students is, I'm just very frank with them about, like, no matter how you came to this country, somebody in your family struggled in the promise that you was gonna be able to sit here today and be comfortable. So I know for my family came from Mississippi. I've been to Mississippi. I've seen the plantation my family grew up on, but like, I am the first generation born in Oakland, California, from them migrating from the 60s and 70s. So understanding that of like, look, so never in your family's history has this journey ever been a smooth one in this country. And somebody fought for you to have a chance to at least even participate, because they knew at first with them even not participating, they were still screwed, and they still fought for you to at least get that. So for you to feel a way about, well, I'm just not going to engage, I don't feel it, like I said, start locally in races that are important, and you'll see your outcome more than saying, well, I was going for Bernie and Bernie didn't get it. You don't live in all the states to flip people for Bernie. Accept that. Like, you're just not going to be able to do that. But what you can do is talk to the people in the 60s and the 70s and get them excited about a mayor is about to come. Or did you know you got a new city council race coming up? District 7, which is deep East Oakland, got a race happening right now. Right now. So if you don't like the way deep East Oakland looks, right now is your time to choose management. You don't like the way Castlemont kids are getting the raw end of the stick? Right now is how you change management. And you don't have to feel disenfranchised. You can literally become engaged and see the difference. I guarantee if somebody told all these little graduates that are hanging around and ain't got nothing to do this summer that, hey, you know, if you could get this person voted in, you could probably get some more stuff happening in your community. I guarantee they'll vote, because that's how we got them to vote. Did you even know that this person is in charge of this part of your government? No. Okay, well, did you know you get to dictate whether they get to keep their job or not? No. Well, the same way you can cuss at the girl at McDonald's who got your order wrong, why can't you get the politician together the way he needs to and vote them out?
Ours.
That's the same logic.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. You know, you voted for them, you hired them. So that's what I try to make them understand of, like, I ain't here to persuade you. It's up to you, but just know you're the manager, and you telling me you don't like management, but you won't fire the boy. You won't fire the girl. So who fault is that? So
Real spill. Matthew, what you got for us?
Yeah, I love it. I love the analogy of the McDonald's worker, or like leaving a review, you know, like you got a product that you're unhappy with, right? Like, we're engaged like that, but why aren't we engaged civically? I love that. That's a beautiful analogy. I think one of the saddest things that I've been hearing lately is my wife, she teaches at Skyline High School. And so she teaches this class, and she really tries to get her young...
Sorry, I'm a tight end.
Yeah, you know. So she tries to get her students to really participate, right? That's one of the big things. Like, her push is youth voice. That's like what she's all about. And so she talks to them and she asks them, you know, like, what's it like in your other classes? And there's no space for them to speak or engage. They just get talked to all day. And it's day in, day out, just getting talked to on the screen. So I think, you know, we need to listen to and hear our young folks. You know, we really need to make space for them in that way. And so that's kind of what we really focus on in our program. I mean, we do youth programming. So we really try to create space for young folks to voice, to create the confidence and the skills to, like, you know, use the power of their voice, but then ultimately to influence like the direction that we're taking program and what we're trying to do. And that's kind of like, you know, like Elisa's saying, like a micro practice of like what a civic engagement would be. And then this concept of like a critical eye of what's going on in my community and what do I want to change. And so that's a skill that we really try to work with them on. And I think that when our young folks do, use their voice and they feel that power, I think it feels good, and I think that they continue to try to exercise that power. And that's the hope, I think that it is so easy to get disheartened. There is a lot of apathy, like Chef Sarah was saying, like these young folks have come up in times that none of us, like we talk about post 9/11, like that's how it is. It's like things changed, and they're coming up in that change and this militarization and the oppression of our young people is real. So anytime we can create space for them to use their power, I think we're moving the right way.
Thank you, Matthew. Brother Ra.
I'm gonna have to ditto everything, but especially Brother Matthew about giving those opportunities for space. Currently, like the age population that I work with is 0 through 5, so some of that dialogue doesn't happen. We talking about shapes and colors most of the time, but like some of my best experiences was working in after school as an enrichment teacher, as an after school director, and also doing restorative justice. And that's where those spaces were created. There's not a lot of those opportunities during the daytime to have, these opportunities to really talk about really deep issues. But one of the things that I loved was that we would have casual, organic conversations while making clay, and there was a day in my Jewish community center. I was teaching a class called Clay Creations. And one of the students in the middle class was like, "Hey, Mr. Rod, didn't you say that the penny is racist?" And I was like, I don't remember saying it, but I might have said something similar. And the community for the most part was like middle class, upper middle class folks coming in. It was around pickup time, so the moms was coming into space. They hear, the penny's racist. I'm like, ugh. Well, I was like, let's take a look at it. I got some pennies some coins in my pocket. So we were able to take them out, and I don't know if you ever did this exercise, but if you lay out all the coins, Lincoln is facing a different direction from everybody else. Lincoln is brown, it's worth less. It's, discarded on the street. Nobody wants to pick up a penny, but you'll pick up like that shiny quarter. So it ended up creating a space where we can talk about race. We talked about race and our experiences. And then for them, I was like, well, y'all might not have this experience of race, but you have experience of ageism, which is another type of prejudice. Have you been to the store before and said, no, only 3 of you at a time? Things like that, so they understand a little bit like, oh, okay, so we were able to have these opportunities. And with the middle school folks in particular, there was a sense of like understanding and empathy that was created when I would do healing circles or these restorative justice circles with them. We will talk about, we'll start something simple like, what's your favorite video game? And then it'll end up, the rounds get deeper and deeper. And at the end, I would have kids crying. And for me, that was a success because they were actually feeling something. They were able to hear. And in the hallway, I was walking behind some students, and one of them was saying like, oh man, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. I thought I was, my dad was the only one who left me and I was all hurt. But this person has the same story. So something about like, our voice does have importance. And I always tie in the example of the census, like 10 million kids didn't get counted in the last census because people had that apathy or they thought it wasn't a big deal. Every vote, every little, person was like $10,000 for your community investment that we just lost. And disproportionately, it were community of color and, places that our families and communities served that didn't get those resources because we didn't fill out the census. And voting is the same thing. We allow other people to make those decisions for us by stepping away. And yeah, we just got to be more honest with the youth and take those little teachable moments and create spaces. It's not happening in the classroom like it needs to, but they need to advocate for that too. Some of them got like circle time or whatever community time, but we gotta, as educators, utilize that moment to really give people the opportunity to talk, and that's why I love restorative justice, because it gives you that opportunity and that equal circle that we all in the same space share together, and I can look at you and I can look at you, and there's no hierarchy in it. And we can all talk and we can learn something if we really listen.
Bill, thank you, Ra. This concludes our time. I want to thank all of the guests who joined us for Building Bridges, Food and Conversations. There's healing at the table. I want to thank our audience. Let's continue to do the amazing work. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your perspectives. And we'll be talking soon. We'll see you next week. Have a great evening. Peace.